Monetization of wealth. Good evening to you. Hope you're doing good. We're talking about hegemony here. I'm Adrian. This is Hegemony Explained. And we want to clarify an important distinction within hegemony. Because hegemony is sometimes defined as domination by consent. I'm going to force my will on you and make you agree with it. Gonna psychologically incept you into thinking what I want you to think so that you go along with what I want you to do. Hegemony's thought it's defined like that sometimes. It's how it's put into practice sometimes, so it's not wrong, to be fair. But better definition for hegemony, which is what Gramscian hegemony really is, from Antonio Gramsci, our amazing thinker from the 30s that did all of this for us, laid all this down. What we need to know about hegemony is that it actually requires both consent and coercion. Hegemony is not just about leadership through sort of collective consent. We define hegemony at Share the Wealth as sort of collective leadership. We say hegemony is the act of creating meaning, the act of creating messages, sending messages, and receiving messages that are that construct reality, essentially. So you're trying to create meaning, make sense out of the world, and see if other people agree with you. See if other people see the world the same way as you. And if you think you're right, you might try to persuade them to agree with you, and you might also mostly just kind of listen to how the world is. A lot of us don't realize it, but from the time we're born and when we grow up, before we even have the capacity to think critically about things, we're just inundated with stuff. We're given a worldview before we even have the mental capacity to critically reflect on any of the information that we're being fed and actively participate in constructing our own worldview. So that's the majority of hegemony is sort of a top-down domination by consent, which is why that definition is not wrong. We at Share the Wealth take the more optimistic approach of collective leadership, because that's really what hegemony has the potential for, which is groups organizing collective action, and then also articulating your own goals in alignment with the goals of other groups. So it's not lying to other people and getting them to believe what you believe, even if it's against their own interests. We see some of that today, but really pure hegemony would be, look, what's in our interests is also in your interest. This is a mutually beneficial thing. Mutually beneficial. So hegemony there can be sort of a collective leadership. That's how we define it at Share the Wealth. The pure definition, which is the point of this video, we're going to take a look at how Gramsci thought of hegemony, is a combination of consent and coercion. You, as a political party, a political leader, are able to curry favor. You're able to win sort of consent more organically with people that are on your team, that are your allies, that are within your political party, that are on your side. They see the world the same way as you. It's easier to just get up on a podium or a soapbox and talk about what you believe, and the people who agree with you are going to consent to your form of leadership if they agree with your view of the world. People who see the world differently, though, you need to coerce into agreement. So there's sort of a cycle of leadership through consent, which gives the group in power the leverage to force antagonistic groups into compliance. So that forced consent is coercion, and that coercion sort of breeds two types of consent, active and passive. So there maybe it's propaganda, maybe it's laws or whatever. You have to, abolition is an example. We want people to stop drinking. We're going to make booze illegal. So we're going to force our worldview on people in some way. That's the coercive. And then you have either active consent or passive consent. You have the people that say, sure, all right, that's how we're doing things now. I'm in. You got me on board. And then you have the people that just kind of don't say no. The people that say, yeah, whatever. It is what it is. And they go about life not really questioning it too much. So there's the active consent, passive consent that results from that coercion, which ultimately builds more consent. That's what it's doing. It's the cycle. So the consent, the original consent from the people that had power, was leveraged into this coercive force that builds more consent, which is a stronger coercive force in the future, which builds more consent, and the cycle repeats. So Gramscian hegemony actually relies on both. It's balance. Rather, it's sort of a cycle, as I see it at least. It's a cycle more so than an equilibrium of consent, coercion, so on and so on. So that's been our Gramscian hegemony for the evening. I hope you have enjoyed. And find something to enjoy while you enjoy. All right, everybody. See you next time.